Let's quickly now get you the big questions that we are asking, and then the experts will be joining us to decode this in detail. How is the global economy likely to be hit in the event that the Strait of Hormuz is actually shut? How does the chokehold impact India? As I said, right now the impact is not so significant, but it could be. How much? The experts will decode that for us. And most importantly, will this mean that fuel prices will soar for India? If they do, we are looking at a larger impact on our finances. All right, let's get in Sanchita Mukherjee and Robinder Sachdev to talk more on this. All right, viewers, we were talking about what would happen if the Strait of Hormuz shuts down. And the questions that we were asking, how is the global markets and the global economy likely to be hit by that? What could be the kind of impact for India of the chokehold? And most importantly, what will be the outlook in terms of fuel prices? And if they soar, how will that impact India? Sanchita Mukherjee and Robinder Sachdev with us on the broadcast. Sanchita, let me start with you. As things stand right now, this prospect looks more real than ever before. And how do you see that impacting? First, let's talk about the global economy, and then we come to India.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I would just like to state that this is not an investment advice on oil prices, just a general discussion. The way I see it, the Strait of Hormuz controls almost 20% of the daily pass-through of the global oil supply, which is close to around 17 million barrels a day, and almost 25% of LNG, which is the liquefied natural gas, daily. So any impact on the Strait of Hormuz, any developing impact on this can have a repercussion on elevated oil prices in the near term. When it comes to India, the way I see it is the meeting which was guided by the Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India, Mr. Anand Nageshwaran, on Friday, that in the immediate term, it is too soon to take a call that there'll be a significant impact because we do have low inflation. We have an ongoing good monsoon, and the interest rate level in the country is low. There's ample liquidity. So we would have to watch this quarter on quarter for any significant impact. In fact, I really like what you just said, that for the time being, in the short term, we are shielded from these price movements because our oil basket is very, very diversified. But we are not immune to this. In the near term, we continue with our macroeconomic fundamentals being intact. But right now, I think the entire focus has gone beyond macroeconomic fundamentals and parameters to right now how Iran would retaliate and how it would actually impact the oil prices.
Robinder Sachdev, your thoughts in terms of what may look like an extremely volatile and a shock actually to the world economy and therefore India.
Thank you so much, Gaurie. A pleasure to be with you and Dr. Sanchita. I mean, see, we may say that India is shielded, but I don't understand. If the world is impacted, how are we isolated and shielded, even if we have a diversified portfolio, right? We may be procuring, from other sources, we might go to others. But if overall world prices are high, we are going to be impacted by it, right? Now, one. Secondly, as you said, and as your colleague expert, she said, that I think it depends upon the time and the duration. In the first 1 or 2 weeks, maybe we could say it's the sentiment, which could guide and all. What we'll have to see is how long this situation lasts. If Iran, blocks the straits, and there are variations to it, what does it mean blocking? Does it block for everyone? Does it allow Chinese cargo to go or whatever, right? But oil prices in the world will go up. If oil prices in the world go up, that also impacts our oil prices, right? And if our oil prices go up, our inflation also goes up. But that would happen if this, situation continues for more than, let's say, a couple of weeks, 1-2 months. And then, yes, this data would reflect in the next months, or whatever the quarterly numbers. Inflation would go up, our rupee would depreciate.
Yes.
Because our trade deficit would go up. Okay.
So let's put this very simply, sir. For the benefit of our viewers, let's try and declutter this. Let's try and unjargon whatever we are saying, because Oil prices impact everyone. They don't need to understand any macroeconomics to understand that when they pay for their fuel, it will become costlier because we import most of it. We don't produce it here. We import it. We import, and not in Indian rupees, we pay it in dollar terms. And that is likely to be impacted because of the volatility. So if the dollar-rupee ratio changes, the price of crude changes, then of course we pay more. It's so simple as that. And when we pay more, it impacts our maths. Just the way it impacts our personal math, financial math, the same way the sovereign financial math also gets impacted if these numbers change for us. Sanchita, then let me ask you this in terms of, there are limited options that we have right now. You know, we've diversified our basket. We take a lot from Russia. Even LNG, we now take a lot from America, more than some of the others, whether it is Qatar or UAE. But is there anything else that we can do to probably, no one can insulate, but probably have better preparations for something like this?
I think the key question or the key watchword in this entire conversation is that, our oil diplomacy is very, very strong, if I may put it, because, despite, if you were to see even previous events in the face of war, adversity, pandemic, all of that, sanctions, India's oil diplomacy with various nations, the backdoor channels that it has established in terms of diversifying its oil basket is very, very commendable. And that has held us typically in good stead over the years. If one were to look at, in fact, right now, I was just going through the oil marketing report by the International Energy Agency, IEA, which clearly states that the second half of 2025 oil prices are expected to be very stable to lower because there's a huge supply glut, there's an oversupply. Right now, that does not stand true because of this geopolitical tension, which is very, very short term in nature. Had this not been there, oil prices would have typically remained very, very low. Right. So right now, the way Iran retaliates, how this situation unfolds is very, very critical. But India, having said that, given its diplomacy across the exporting countries, be it crude oil, be it LNG, be it LPG, be it condensates, all of that.
Yes.
It's a very classic, and very few people can understand. It's actually not very simple to understand this oil diplomacy, but India has played its cards very well previously.
A quick word on India's oil diplomacy, Robinder, Sachdev?
Well, absolutely so. See, all I'm trying to say is, yes, India's oil diplomacy is absolutely doing very well, a lot of work going on. But the point is, if the realities change, sure, with oil diplomacy, we are able to, tap into diversified sources, yes, right? Be it Russia or be it Venezuela, even, let's say, right? But the point is, if the overall oil prices are increasing in the world, then even the Russian supplies or the US or whichever sources we get, right, those would go up. That's my big picture thing. As to what we can do, perhaps, is, I think, definitely is diversify our sources. We could perhaps look into currency swaps. Okay, or let's say rupee payment, those kind of mechanisms. What we could also look at is perhaps increasing our strategic reserve, which we have, I think, for about 9 to 10 days.
Okay, that's a very important point you made, that strategic oil reserves of India, we can probably revisit the amount that we want to keep to ensure that we insulate ourselves from these global shocks. As far as some of the other measures you mentioned, I do believe they are going into more technical aspects of it, but I want to keep it unjargoned, because I firmly believe whenever you talk about public finance, the more unjargoned you do it, the more people understand it. And I think that should be the ultimate goal. I'm going to leave it there.